Hey guys, I know most of my videos are about Tarkov, but I do play other games, EVE Online being one, and I wanted to make a production tutorial for making P3 products. This can be done both if you're a veteran player or if you're a newer player that's just looking for a way to make some passive ISK in this game. If you guys have any interest in playing EVE Online, let me know in the comments down below. I'll have a referral link in the description. It gets you some free skill points, gets me some free skill points, all good. Enjoy, guys. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button and subscribe for more. Hey guys, I wanted to talk about setting up a P1 to P3 factory setup for all three of your tunes. If done right, this can provide the majority of the ISK that you ever need to plex an account. I was doing the math in my head earlier today. If you do it, and you miss a cycle, maybe 2 cycles, you're still going to be bringing in around 3 billion, 2.5 billion a month in profit. So the first thing that we want to do is look at what our options are for P3. This is hans.io/pi. This will tell you what your inputs need to be for each stage of PI, as well as if it's needed in a further product. So you've got biotech research reports, camera drones, condensates, cryoprotectant solution, data chips, geometrics biopaste, guidance systems, hazmat detection systems, hermetic membranes, high-tech transmitters, industrial explosives, neocoms, nuclear reactors, planetary vehicles, robotics, smart fab units, supercomputers, synthetic synapses, transcranial microcontrollers, Ukomi superconductors, and vaccines. I do P1 to P3 because it's less overall work. I basically can drop off a bunch of P1 supplies into a single planet and come back in about 4 days. It's 104 hours, which is like 4.33 days, something like that. If you want to go even more advanced, you could do P2 to P4. The difference is going to be if you can get a healthy supply of P2 goods. I tried doing it a little bit. It was pretty hard to get a continual supply because most people that make P2 will either sell it on the market or they use it for their own goods. A lot of P2 is used in other things, mechanical parts, the enriched uranium. Those are used in fuel block construction, stuff like that. So this is the first step. The other nice thing, if you are going the extraction route, you can actually see here, if I click on plasma, these are all of the resources, the P0, that you can refine on a plasma planet into P1. Do that with all the different planet types. It gives you just a very nice, simple way to track what you're trying to do. So the next tool is Atom for Eve, or you can use Fuzzworks. I like Atom for Eve. It's just a little bit more in depth and you have a little bit more control over stuff. I'll do Fuzzworks here first. So if you come to fuzzworks.co.uk, you go to your industrial tools. Down here you have Factory Planet PI. Now, why I don't like Fuzzworks here is because it assumes a lot of things. It assumes that you are buying at the lowest price, I believe, and selling at the sell value price. It also doesn't give you a lot of like, oh, I bought P1 and made P3. It looks at just the pure input cost and the pure output. You can set your tax rate here. The demonstration I'm going to do is actually in HiSec, where I'm suffering a 15% tax rate. If you live in nullsec, your alliance is going to have different rules for different types of planets, stuff like that. So if we look at the profits at a 15% tax rate, currently, if you were to buy the polyamerids and transmitters, your input cost is 414,000 ISK. Output value is about 1 million. Now, that's 1 million for 3 of them, which breaks down to 330,000 ISK a piece. You're looking at a 630,000 profit. I was checking the history charts on this. High-tech transmitters are like up almost 30% over the past 30 days. There's something funky going on in that market. This is part of that figuring out what you want to build. This is where the Adam for Eve site comes in really useful. It has a PI section. If you click on profitability, you now have all of the list that you could ever dream up for this. So we're gonna go 15%. I have a GDAlt that sells, so my market percentage, you can set that. So I do pure factory planets, and we're only doing 2 levels because we're going from P2 or P1 to P2, that's 1 level, and then P2 to P3, so that's 2 levels. I buy at Jita Split. That's the deal that you get if you, well, that's the deal I get buying from our Alliance PI group. Since this is for my GDAlt though, I'm going to be buying from sell orders. And ideally, I want to sell 2 sell orders. So if we hit the show me, it's going to go through and recalculate all this. Now, no surprise here, just like Fuzzworks, it's showing that the high-tech transmitters are the current winner for price. Here's the beautiful thing about Adam for Eve. I click on the HST button, that's the historygram, and you can see here there's something funky going on in the market. This is not normal. But we saw a similar spike here back in February. So there's something that has happened at both of these time points. And this is one where you would go through and you'd research. But what you can do is you can look at where does this line sit on average over the course of a year. Right now we are in an uptrend. I like setting up in a way that you are able to adjust whatever you're making on the fly after a cycle, and you don't have to do a bunch of tear down and rebuild up. So the other beautiful thing about Adam for Eve, we can look at the actual production chain. So you have everything from your P0s all the way up to your end product. We are buying the P1. So you can check this little shopping cart button here. Now, when you come into the chain, you do have to reset your customs tax and all of that stuff. And here we can actually see the profit per chain. And now a chain is going to be a single factory output. So that means it's going to be, in this case, 2 P2 factories that are feeding 1 P3 factories, because the output of a P2 factory is 5 units. The P3 needs 10. So it's going to be 2 of each P2 factory. And I'll get more into that here when we get into the actual planet. I just wanted to highlight this tool and how important and strong it is to use. Adam for Eve has a lot of other really neat things. You can use it to track market trends. You can use it to look at different manufacturing profitability and reprocessing profitability as well. Highly recommend getting into this tool and playing with it a ton. All right. So for setting up your planets, I'm going to be doing this on my HiSec alt as a demonstration. I don't really like broadcasting where I live in nullsec, but I'm going to show you how I set up my factory planets. It's the exact same in nullsec as it is in HiSec. The difference for me is the transportation methods of getting my goods from point A to B and the tax rate on the customs office. So if I take a look here on any of these planets, we go into show info and we can look at the tax rate. The tax rate's 15%. It's not great. I can tell you right now, in nullsec, I pay a lot less. So we're going to look at a barren planet. Barren planets are the best for doing these factory planets because they're smaller in size, so your links use up less CPU and power. So we set up the command center, we get it upgraded on its power and its grid, so we can go ahead and start building. So I like to do a 2 launch pad and 1 storage container setup. Now, the rule of thumb here is that since each P2 factory, I need 2 P2 factories for a P3 factory. So the way I do that is, so this is going to be my first set of P2. I'm going to be making, as you saw in my list, I'm making high-tech transmitters. That uses 2 inputs. It uses polyamerids and transmitters. So one side here is going to build the transmitters, one side's going to build the polyamerids, and then I'm going to have the P3 factories up here. So we go to the Baron Advance. So since I have 2 of each, now that makes 1. Two more of each. That's 2. There's 3. And 4. Now, we're cutting it a little close on power grid, but that's not really relevant. And we are pretty spacious on the CPU load. If I were to do a third launch pad here, I actually wouldn't be able to do this because the CPU load would be huge. So now we just got to hook these all up. So I try to make short connections because if you have too many links, the system won't let you do it. I know that there is an exact amount and stuff like that. I don't pay enough attention to it to really mind it for as much PI as I do. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the numbers here before we get too in depth on you really setting it up. So, we're going to come over here to Janice. So we saw, we go here, we need chiral structures, plasmoids, oxidizing compounds, and industrial fibers. So, let's see if I got that right. Yeah, I did. Now, I do 25,000 of each because that's 4,750 cubic meters. That means each launch pad is going to hold 9,500 cubic meters of its 10,000 capacity. If you wanted to be really perfect about this, the actual magic number is going to be 24,000 of each. That gets you an even time cycling so you don't end up with decimals that get rounded when you're doing math. Now, for this single planet, this is going to cost me 89 million ISK. As a precaution, doing this setup requires a high upfront cost. But in the long run, I like it a lot better than extracting. If you don't have that upfront cost, you can actually set up a tune to do this extraction. It takes a little bit longer, but it also gives you a higher profit margin. Now, let's do some basic math here. Well, it's not basic, but let's do some math. So each of these factories is going to eat 40. So we're going to set up transmitters on this side. And then I usually set my stuff to go straight to the storage component. here. So we'll get these set up here, and then we'll get into the math side, actually. So this one side is dedicated to just transmitters. This other side will be dedicated to the polyamorids. And then since this is going to be our end, or the end of our chain here, we'll go ahead and set this one up as well. This is making high-tech transmitters. They're going to go there. And these will also empty into this storage. I like using the storage as the go-between. It just prevents any overflow issues that cause a loss of product. Now we submit that. And now let's take a look at the numbers here. So each of these is going to eat 40 of each P1. So we have 8 factories for each side. So 8 times 40 is 320. So every hourly cycle, the factory is going to use 320 of our P1 components, both sides evenly. What that means is that since we have 25,000 units, we divide that by the 320, and that's going to give us how many cycles to go through all of the input. In this case, it's 78.12. Now, remember I said 24,000 is kind of the magic number here. And that's a flat 75. You're missing out on roughly 3 extra cycles. Dealer's choice on if you want to do that or not. I like to just keep things simple and just buy that flat amount. So let's go back to 25,000 because that's what I've got. So 78.12. So 78 cycles. That is going to give us each of these outputs 5. Well, we have 8 here, so it's going to output 40 every hour. We know how many cycles that we now are dealing with. We're dealing with 78. I round down in this case. Technically rounding up is the correct, or technically doing a flat multiplication is the correct way to do it, but it gets real wonky real fast. I hate dealing with fractional numbers in this situation. So that means that at the end of 78 cycles, we'll have 3,120 of the P2 goods. But we're not actually going to have that, because at the end of each cycle, these 4 factories are going to be taking from the center, and they're going to be taking 10 units of each. So in 1 hour, this outputs 40, and each of these factories is pulling 10. So it's pulling 40. So it's basically pulling the P1 to here, outputting the P2 to here, which instantly gets pulled up into here and starts processing. So now, since it's 3,120 divided by 40, because that's how many get used, it's going to give us our cycle time again. Hey, it's the exact same. But since we are on the same planet, that means that for full completion of all of your inputs to be gone and all of your outputs to be finished, it will take 79 hours. It's basically 1 hour additional, because for that first hour, these are not working. These will output 3 units each. So that's 12 units of P3 an hour that you're going to get. So we now know how many cycles that is. So that's going to be 12 times 78, since 3, 6, 9, 12. 936 units of P3. So now we pull this up, we open this up, and we go thick trans. So at the GDUP buy price, because if you're looking for instant fast cash, it's 156. We paid assumedly 90 million. We're buying at, or we're selling at 156. That's 66 million in 79 hours. So, 79. So, basically every 4 days. 60 million every 4 days. It's not bad. Now let's take a look at it on a larger scale. So let's do all these. Well, there would be 66, 132, 198. This is where math benumbs me, so we're going to do it this way. You have 5 planets open to you. That's 330 million in profit that you are pulling in. Now, this doesn't take into effect your import output or import export tax or your sales tax. But we already know what that number is going to be, right? So if we're exporting 330, so we're going to have 280 million, and then we have sales tax. You're still looking at 260 million after taxes. Now, these tax numbers, I haven't figured out the import-export tax. The numbers don't necessarily add up correctly to me when looking at it, but I'm not amazing when it comes to the mechanics of how the math is applied. But that's still 250 million every 4 days. So you have 3 tunes per account. And this is in high sec. So let's expand that out. You have 3 tunes. Let's say they're all in high sec. That's 260 million every 4 days for each tune. 3 tunes, 790 million in 4 days. It's 30 days in a month. In theory, that's 7 cycles of doing this. That's 5.5 billion. Now, will you get those 7 cycles perfectly? Probably not. I always, just to be safe, I round down. Well, let's do it in actual millions now. Let's say it's going to be only 6 times. That still is 4.7 billion in profit. Once again, this is all profit. If we want to look at raw numbers here, so this is a single planet, but you have 5 slots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So per character, to do this, you're going to need 450 million every 4 days. But you're going to get once again, selling 780 million. So 450 to 780, it's 330 million in profit. Now, once again, we can actually see here there is something going on with the market because the sell price for these, right now the buy price on these is 167,000 ISK per unit, and the sell price is 359,000 ISK per unit. So I don't know if the high-tech transmitters are going to be a good long-term thing. I was testing them out because I did see that they had a slightly higher profit margin a while ago. I wanted to see how that all played out. These may get swapped over to other products that I make. I'm not going to really advise on those because I don't want to undercut my own market, number one. And number two, those markets right now are looking a little shaky as is too. The big thing is to use that Adam for Eve tool. Just kind of keep an eye on what prices are doing. So let's do the most annoying part of any PI after doing setup. So I now have this planet set up. I'm sitting here with the PI in my hold. Let's go and drop this off and get it filled up. If you can, I highly recommend getting the multiple character trainer and trying to get 6 slots per character. PI is a money-making venture that doesn't seem like it does very well, but it does make a lot of ISK when you scale it properly. One of these plants, oh man, 66 million ISK every 4 days, that's not great. But when you have 5, well, that's 330 every 5 days, or 4 days. So, beautiful thing about this is you can literally drop stuff off in the customs office and then warp back to your tether. You do have to be in space when you're doing this, so that is kind of the downside. But if you've got structures in that space, you can tether up. If you've got a safe, you can just safe up and, cloak up if you're in hostile space. All right, so since this side is our transmitters, we're going to launch the rocket. So this needs chiral structures and plasmoids. Double check here. Yep. And like I said, that fills up 9,500 of the 10,000 space. Now I do the same thing over here. Let's see. Okay, that. Nope. I was hoping that they finally implemented the ability to stack your inputs, but nope. Like I said, this is the most annoying thing, but once it's set up, the only time you're going to have to change this part is if you are actually changing the product you're making, and even that's not too bad. Doing this actual setup each time is the annoying part. And the nice thing here is if you miss something, you're going to know right away because it's going to yell at you. Well, the color won't change for you, I should say. As you see, as we're finishing the production line, they turn from that red to that yellow. There is a visual bug that happens every now and then when you're actually like building and setting up routes where a factory will turn yellow. I haven't figured out what the trigger is for that yet, but you'll do it and then you'll be like, oh, that route's already set up, and then you'll come back and be like, oh, never mind. All right, so those are all set up now. Now we come into here, we have nothing in storage, but we do have goods coming in, so we can still create the route. Oh, that's the high-tech transmitters. So you have polyamerids coming in. And transmitters. This is like the most annoying part of this is when you have to go down into the list to get what you're looking for, and if you accidentally click out, it closes it all. You got to reopen it. All right, now I submit that. These all tick down. These start up on their cycles. So, in theory, in 79 hours, I will have 936 high-tech transmitters that I can go and sell in JITA, which is only a few jumps away because this is a high-sec alt. So, to give you an idea of how this looks when finished and there's actually goods blowing through it, these 4 planets I actually set up earlier today. It's been about 9, almost 10 hours. As you can see, volume on these is down, but I've got about 300 square meters of goods in each one. And that's about 13 million. So, quick napkin math, I've got 4 planets. Each one is roughly the same. So 13 million times 4. So I've got 52 million right here in 13 hours. So I'm making about 4 million an hour. Doesn't sound like much, but this is all passive, and this is all on one tune. So my other tunes get about the same, really. They have some higher margins on them, but I still make fairly good ISK doing it. Like I said, if you math it out into multiple tunes, this becomes insanely profitable. So this is one tune, is that 782 million. So let's say we did this across 3 tunes. So like this is one tune, so there's 1 tune, 2 tunes, 3 tunes. So for a single account with 3 tune slots, if you're doing this all at once, you're paying 1.34 billion ISK for input goods. But you're getting back 3.9 billion. 1.3 billion to 3.9. You're making 2.6 billion. Now, once again, these prices are a little insane. Even the buy price is up 30% compared to the 30-day median. The sell price is even nuttier. I have no idea what is going on with these prices, but it's something to keep an eye on. This could be a good opportunity for people. As of the recording of this video, which is the end of July, it could be a complete trap. So, when prices seem too good, always be cautious, is my advice there. So, if there's any other specific PI that you want me to do demonstrations for, let me know in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe for more videos. I know I normally do Tarkov content, but we're at the end of wipe and I'm just kind of waiting for the wipe to happen, and then I'm going to be doing a ton more of those Tarkov videos. Thanks for watching, guys.